10th, 2007. We're going to talk about what's going on at the New World Airport. With Bill Zabel, he's with me on the other end of the line. But before we get to Bill, a couple things. One, with regard to yesterday's show with Dave from 911blimp.net, I completely blew that. Doing a pre-record with him. And very unprofessional. My fault. He's graciously acceded to come on. Tuesday we'll knock out the Grassy. Knoll. We'll postpone that, and we'll get to Dave. He's got some stuff that you need to hear. And like I said, that was my fault. Also, some of you have asked questions about the hawk whose photo is on my Live 365 page. Just to let you know, that is a magnificent female red-shouldered hawk that perches on a limb just outside the window of my wife's office. It's in northeast Tampa. It's adjacent to a number of parks that chain up to the county line and to where we live in Pasco County. And it's an extraordinarily large female, and maybe I'll put a close-up of it later on when you can take a look. It's just what a creature. Okay, so that's the deal on the hawk. That is not my Vyzygoth. Now, getting to our guest, Bill Zabel, from the great state of Colorado, which gets stranger by the minute. Thanks for coming back to the Grassy Knoll, Bill.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, well, I appreciate you coming on. I want to set up also that much of what we'll talk about is embodied in a DVD. The information was collated by Bill Bixler. I guess the presentation was that also of Bill Bixler. He gave it to Bill. It's Bob Bixler, isn't it?
Bob, yes.
Yeah, okay. Too many B's, too little time. Bob Bixler gave it to Bill. Bill has made a DVD of it. We're going to refer to a 22-minute clip later in the show. We're going to deal with half of it, 11 minutes, where a construction worker talks about what went on at the DIA or the NWA, depending on what you want to call it, in the construction phase. And also, Bill, you were someone who, by virtue of living in Colorado and close to where the airport is, has watched all that's gone on prior to, during, and after the construction of the New World Airport.
Yes. Yeah, I was pretty intimately involved because, like everyone else, I didn't think we needed the airport, and I didn't want to spend the money.
Well, was there anything wrong with Stapleton? Was it being outgrown, or?
There was a lot of rumors and political essays, but, I read the FAA reports and even the City of Denver engineers report. The only thing they said was that if they wanted to expand Stapleton to handle additional airline carriers or flights, they would have to do so by expanding out onto the arsenal, and they didn't like the idea at the time because there was still chemical contamination out there, and they would have to have a massive cleanup and EPA study done. The fact is that's been done already, and now there's shopping malls out there on the arsenal. So their excuses were pretty flimsy anyways. As far as the thing like the cost-benefit, Stapleton was really handling everything fine from a financial point of view. I mean, the airport was paid off. The expansive work that they had done in 1982 was almost paid for. They'd almost paid off all that work. And the FAA, City of Denver, and the Airline Pilots Association had admitted publicly when they started the rumors about building DIA that the flights coming into Denver were actually going down, and they've been steadily going down since that time.
Well, when they want to do something, there's always the reason and the real reason.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's another case of that as far as... Now, did they have to... did they raise bonds amongst the people to finance that?
Yes. In fact, the majority of the expenses for the airport were handled through bonds. The federal government only gave them $665 million in what's called through the Airport Improvement Program, or AIP, which has been in effect since the early 60s. They had to generate the rest through revenues, and that is where they got themselves into trouble. They weren't quite honest with the public about the rating of the bonds, the rating of the whole project. Basically, Lay & Fisher's Associates, the company that issued the bonds and audited the city of Denver, really, they recommended that the city of Denver put these bonds into Stapleton and not try to build a new airport. They saw it as too risky of a venture.
Also, I've said this a couple of times, and I'll state it once more for the context of the show. That pilot Pete, my friend who flies for a major airline, went into DIA, and a couple things happened. One of them is I said, would you take a look at the murals and tell me what you think? He did. He thought it was kind of weird. But he also said to me, he goes, you know what, I can't understand. They build more runways out there, and that place is so little used, which means that Stapleton was adequate also, and as I had said to him at that time and have recitated since then, and that is it's not for now, it's for what's to come.
Yeah.
So he must, he does admit that it's kind of strange the place would expand when it's, when you can't rub two planes together out there.
Yeah. Well, what they did was the airport is actually smaller than the original design. The original design actually called for 6 concourses. They only have 3. And they originally started out with 125 gates, and by the time the airport was done, they downgraded to 94. Now, they do have 6 runways out there, but they can only use 5. And people always ask me, well, what's the 6th one for? And I said, I don't know. They covered it up with dirt. And if you go to Google and do a downward-looking photograph on DIA, you can see this runway under the dirt. You can see the outline of it. And they've admitted it. I've got the news articles from the mid-'90s where they admitted, well, gee, we built this new 10,000-foot-long runway, and those dummies just poured the concrete in the wrong place. So we're just going to bury it up with dirt. That's not even an internet conspiracy theory. They admitted that publicly that they did it.
Also, I believe that the construction worker, whom we'll hear later, and this goes back to when Stu Webb, before he lost his mind or whatever happened to him, said that there were 2 they covered up. Is that correct?
Well, the second one I can't see, so they might have covered it up better. There was always those rumors there was 2 of them, but they only admitted to 1. And I've been looking at the aerial maps that the city of Denver took at DIA, and I can only see the 1. So there could be a second one out there. If there is, they did a better job of covering it up than the 1.
When was construction begun? What year?
1989 in September.
And roughly how long did it take before it became functional?
1995, I believe it was October of 1995, because I remember they had a big brouhaha. It was kind of like a big party. Oh, here it is. Yeah, it was in February 28th. Yep. Originally the airport was supposed to have been done in February of 1993, and because of cost overruns and construction delays, there was tons of that stuff going on. I mean, it was just incredible. If you go out there in the street and you talk to anybody that's a civil engineer or aeronautical engineer and just bring up DIA and say, well, what do you think about the construction of that place? There's an old Marine term that they have for it. Basically, it's a cluster, you know what.
Mm-hmm.
That's what engineers will tell you. The way they put that airport in, you just don't run a construction project that way. It was a mishmash of prime contractors, subcontractors, people being pulled off projects, a third of the way through the completion, contractors being told, okay, your section's done. When prime contractors usually follow a project all the way through completion, they might subcontract out small parts of it, but they have prime contractors out there that would build, say, 300-400 feet of the runway, and then they'd say, okay, that's it, you're out of here, thanks, here's your check. And it was just bizarre. I mean, whether you wanted the airport or not, engineers, everyone was just shaking their heads going, why are you doing this way? It just didn't make any sense.
Now, you have 2 dailies, I think, that serve you, the Denver Post and the Rocky Mountain Times?
News, yeah.
Rocky Mountain News?
Yeah, we call it the Denver Compost and the Rocky Mountain Snoozes.
Well, then that probably will answer my next question with a negative, and that is, did either of those papers do any kind of oversight exposés, any kind of analysis of what was going on with the airport?
Yeah, I was surprised they actually did, but they didn't deal with the issues that I would have liked to have seen done. They dealt mostly with just the bond issue. They didn't really deal with where a lot of the money came from, because I found out through the bond holding company, and I pulled the documents from that, total, they only raised $3.04 billion in bonds, but yet, according to an audit by the FAA and the General Accounting Office, they spent close to $5.8 billion. Where did the rest of the money come from?
God.
Through all the bonds.
It came from God.
Yeah. Well, the media here in Denver, they dealt with just the bond issue. They dealt, with the scandal about our former mayor, Federico Pena, starting the whole DIA thing in the mid-'80s. By the way, Federico Pena's wife, her family is invested in quite a few different companies, including Hensel and Phelps and others. And it was her family's companies that they're invested in that got many of the prime contracts, which probably should have been a conflict of interest, because he publicly admitted that, she basically went to bat with the county commissioners and the city improvement office that Denver has for construction improvement projects, that she basically went to bat for her family's companies to get the contracts. And that should have been a no-no with her being married to the mayor. But people kind of gloss that over after a while. But I always got the sinking feeling that all of this crap about, Federico Pena and how he got the airport started and his wife being involved in the contracts, that was just smoke and mirrors. They definitely were hiding something else. They were hiding, I think, where a lot of the money came from. I think they were hiding what they were actually building out there as well. I mean, I'd never seen a civil contract except for a classified military facility go in under such secrecy and demanding that people keep their mouths shut. And you can talk to airline pilots and they'll tell you, you can badmouth an airport anywhere in the country and people say, yeah, that's right, this is a really bad airport. But DIA pilots will tell you they got to speak off the record. They don't dare publicly say anything about DIA. I call it the first politically correct airport in the country.
Howard, you just jogging my memory. Does any airline call that its home hub?
United Airlines.
Okay. I'm starting to think back that some woman was popping off about the place. Oh, geez, I remember something about that. Okay. And, she started running her mouth, and I guess she got whisked away. That doesn't sound familiar to you, does it?
There's actually quite a number of people that either lost their job or were told they needed to move on after their public comments about DIA.
Well,
there was a talk show host here in Denver. He was not real big on AM radio. I can't remember his name now. He was just a small-timer, and he was ripping the more esoteric aspects of DIA, the possible underground construction, just the strangeness of the way the airport went in. And basically, he found himself packing his bag and leaving Denver. Now, there were bigger talk show hosts that were taking on DIA, like, Peter Boyle of KHOW.
Mm-hmm.
He took on DIA, but once again, he just dealt with the financial issues and things like that. He didn't get into the underground construction. Where that came into being and what brought the media's attention to that was it, I don't know if you've ever heard the name Phil Schneider.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before he died, he actually came to Denver and told people, said, listen, you guys have no idea what, we did out there. He says, this is not just an airport just to make the city of Denver look good with the rest of the country. And he went into the whole spiel about the underground construction. And believe it or not, the media took him serious. And, of course, they would, because the guy actually does have, he's dead now, but he did have professional credentials for that type of construction. He supervised that kind of work around the world.
Some of the information with Schneider and what goes on can get wild, and we're not going to deal with that right now.
Right, I understand the weirder side of his allegations, yeah.
But again, you got to wonder. because of the way he met his demise, could he? It's usually indicative of he said something he shouldn't have. That's obviously accurate. Real quick about the land issues, though. You said that there was some kind of turning over of the property on which the airport would be built. It changed a couple of hands, like.
Yeah, believe it or not, the one group that was involved, and you've probably heard on this on TV and read books about it, but their name was never connected to DIA. MDC Holdings had actually paid a company to go in and buy the land in Denver, outside of Denver, for the airport. Now, this holding company that MDC Holdings hired actually went to Adams County and bartered to get the land, because at the time it was just farmland, and you have to go through all kinds of conversion processes. That land has to be annexed, all kinds of political stuff. By the time this front company for MDC Holdings got done and they had transferred the land to other people, once researchers got done with it, they found out that these guys had changed the land 300 times. It had gone through that many different holding and real estate companies.
300 times?
Yeah.
Over what time span?
About the span of 3.5 years. 3.5, 4 years. Because they actually started buying that land a lot earlier than they said. This project was in the works as far back as 1985. There's no way that suddenly in 1988 they decide to build the airport and start breaking ground in 89. Sorry. No, they were doing this clear back in the mid-80s, because my uncle and his dad owned a lot of that land, and they were selling this land off as early as 84. And, at that time, farming in Colorado was going downhill. A lot of farmers were just giving up. And, my relatives sold a lot of land out there to these guys. They didn't care. They just wanted to get rid of it. They were all getting out of farming anyways. But, by the time they got done with land holdings, it changed hands 300 times, and people were just flabbergasted. Why would you turn land over that much before you start building on it?
All right, so it's pretty clear that there was foreknowledge, and that the people who bought that probably were the ones who were to sit on it and make sure that it didn't go out of the chain until the time when they were ready to break ground.
Yeah.
All right, there are two other things. One, what do you know about the widely, renowned baggage snafu?
Oh, that was a big thing of mine. I watched that for years. BAE Systems is actually a British defense contractor. You have to do a little digging to find that out. When they first came about with the plans to build DIA, their idea was to have an automated baggage system run by computers that would read the tag on your luggage and decide which concourse it needed to go to. Well, they kind of had a small problem. These little carts that they had set on a pivot, and when they were going around turns, they liked to dump the bags off the carts into basically the mechanical works underneath. Well, I've got pictures of the baggage system. This is the biggest snafu they ever built. They have a bar that looks like a machete almost, welded to the bottom of these carts, and when the bags would fall out, these little bars would cut bags in half. That's the problem that they had when they first installed the experimental system back during the major concourse construction. BAE actually had a baggage system installed and running, and they never could get this thing to run right. It would dump bags out, and it just all kinds of snafus. The system would just quit for no reason at all. It would lose power. They never could figure out why it was losing power all the time. Everything out there was a mess, but the baggage system, I think, got the brunt of the media attention, when the fact is they should have been paying attention to the actual construction itself. Interesting enough, I found out from BAE's website that they actually installed that same baggage system at Heathrow Airport in 1988 and had no problems at all. The very same thing.
It's only in the United States where things don't work right.
Yeah, or at DIA.
But I guess the thing that's most provocative is the cavernous underground that I guess people early on guessed might be underground parking. They just couldn't understand it for what it finally became. Mm-hmm. What is the deal with the underground? what do we know, if anybody knows, what it has become?
Well, I do know from the pictures that I've seen that Bob Bixler's shown me and others. I don't have any pictures of this myself. I should ask these people to give me copies for my website. The tunnel area, they have a tramway. It's a train that will take you from the parking garages to all the concourses and out to the terminals. These are trains that are all about 50 to 100 feet underground. Now, the tunnel where the trains sit are actually a lot wider than they need to be, even if you account for a service tunnel, to drive a vehicle and to fix the trains. People, lots of people, more than I can even remember, have told me coming in on those trains, because when you get off the airplane, you have to get on the train to go to the main concourse area to get, a rent-a-car or to go out to your car at the parking garage. They've all noticed the same strange things down there. If you look off to the side while the train is passing through the underground area, there are tunnels that go off on either side of the train and just disappear in the distance. And, of course, they always think, well, those are service tunnels. They must handle sewage and electrical and all that. But professional people, men and women who actually design this type of equipment, have said that those tunnels are too big. It doesn't make any sense that you would dig a hole in the ground off of main tunnels that large. Service tunnels, yes, for engineers and technicians to walk through, but these tunnels, many, many people, more than I can count, like I said, have said you could drive a truck through these side tunnels.
Well, that's what I want to ask you, too. These tunnels do not have monorail or conventional rail beds, right? They're just flat?
No, they're just tunnels. They're flat, and they're concrete floor tunnels.
And they're not illuminated as well. They may be affixed with lights, but they're not illuminated, right?
Well, they do. Some of them are dark, and they can only see a little ways down them, and others are illuminated. There's one that is illuminated for, probably 100 yards or so. And people are just like, what do you use something like this for? This is a waste of space and money. And I agree if there's no use for them.
I wonder if they have above the opening, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter through these tunnels." Did they say how many there are? Are there like 20 of them? Are there 12?
Well, the one lady that I talked to that came into Denver said that she counted a tunnel about every 50 feet, and she said the train was going so fast she had to just look, down them real quick. But she said there, from the terminal at the United Terminal all the way into Concourse A, which is where she got off at, was Concourse A. She said that there had to be 24 or more tunnels.
Now, Bob Bixler, who provided the information from which you made a DVD, and I'm just thinking about it. We ought to talk, Bill, about maybe it's possible to put up the construction workers' mini lecture on YouTube.
Yeah.
And that might be a good idea, because when we go into this, people are going to be at a little disadvantage not having seen the graphic, which he apparently drew on a whiteboard or something like that, if I remember correctly, as he goes through his presentation. And again, it's about 22 minutes. I believe it's the last 22 minutes of the DVD that you did make. And of the first 11 minutes, we will not only hear but talk about, because it's interesting what his viewpoints were. And I tell you, one more thing, and then we will go to the audio. But are there underground levels that nobody has ever seen, that are not open to the public, that they are known to be there?
Well, I can prove. If you'd asked me this question 6 years ago, I would have said I can't prove it, but I've heard the rumors. But in 2002, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, was interviewed, the local director was interviewed by Channel 9 News and said that the entire FEMA operation at the Denver Federal Lakewood Center was moving to their new underground facility at DIA. Admitted it publicly.
In what state is Lakewood?
Lakewood is in Jefferson County.
All right,
it is on the west side of Denver.
Okay. All right. Well, look. Before we go any further, too, why don't you tell the folks what your website is? You also, I think, have linked. I have the murals up on my site. Do you have the murals active on your site?
I have the first 6 active on the first page.
Okay, I've got 9, and they came also from Bill. Why don't you give, like I said, people the website. Also, we want to let you know, and we do thank Bob Bixler for making the information available.
Yeah.
Now, Bob actually got down here, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And folks understand something. This was never meant to be a commercial product. So, I mean, we're not apologizing for Bob, but he just meant to get some footage down and to discuss certain things. But also, if you would like to take a look at this, what we've done in the past is we just ask you to compensate Bill for the expenses. And you've been real good about doing that with a little over the top, I mean, which is not bad because it's his time, too. So lay on us, Bill, what the website is, where they can find the links to the murals, the Jefferson maps, and any other information that you want to impart right now.
Okay. The website is www.phantomchasers.net/dia.html.
Okay, you can also hit his site off my site, and again, like I said, both places you'll find the murals. We're going to discuss that in totality tomorrow. We're just going to deal with some of the other, I guess, more from a construction standpoint and the physical plant, what is going on out there. This is the Grassy Knoll. It's 27 minutes after the hour. We are now going to go to an 11-minute audio. The construction worker is the individual who's speaking about what he saw, and he diagrams it. Sorry that you're at a disadvantage right now to try to conceptualize it. Perhaps we can do as we just talked about, maybe get it up on YouTube. Also, before we go there real quick, Bill, the guy that seems to be he's questioning him. Do you know whether that person was taking the role of a devil's advocate or as an interviewer or a facilitator, or was he trying to be convinced of what was going on out there? Do you know?
When I talked to the cameraman who recorded this guy in Denver who was a carpet cleaner, he recorded all this stuff for Bob because Bob's done other things. This particular guy was asked to come in and oversee it because he's like a paranormal UFO researcher, and Bob really didn't want to ask the questions himself. He just wanted to stand in the background and just analyze what was going on. Bob was actually at this thing.
Uh-huh.
And just see, what this guy had to say. So this guy was just kind of brought in at the last minute and said, ask this guy about what he did out there and what's going on. So it didn't seem to me like, that he was doing a professional interview. I think they were just trying to feel this construction worker out by bringing in this researcher.
Where was the venue that this took place?
They did this at a restaurant. They have a place that they used to, it's a Wild Oats now. It used to be just like a regular Denny's restaurant, and they were in the back, doing this.
All right, and some of those Denny's have kind of quasi-meeting rooms, I guess, and that's where they were doing this.
Yeah, real informal. They weren't trying to do anything professional at all.
Also, I want to let folks know, not to be titillating, but you sent me a strip photo about 6 inches wide, only 3 inches in height. And this was your photo you took?
Are you talking about the air ducts?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I took that photo myself.
All right. Folks, I don't know how well it would stand up to any kind of magnification, but there are just two gigantic structures that are, the air changers?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when you take a look at this, and you took it from the margin road outside of the airport?
Yeah, they have a road that goes by the front of it. When I took the photo, I couldn't get any closer because they had a security guy walking around, and they had no trespassing signs. Otherwise, I would have gotten closer and got a better photo.
Now, the two of them are on to photo left and photo right. What's in the middle? Can we assume that's the construction of Denver Airport?
No, that is actually north of the airport. That's about 2 miles north.
And what in the world is that then?
Well, nobody seems to know. Whoever built the place tried to claim that it was a United Power experimental generating station for electricity, and when I took a United Power engineer out there, he took one look at the facility and got on his cell phone to the Public Utilities Commission and said, hey, there's a facility here with our name on it. It's not ours. Who is this place? And about 2 weeks after he filed a complaint with the city of Denver, all of a sudden they changed the name to Excel. I also took somebody from the city of Brighton out there, and they looked at it too, and they said, listen, this has nothing to do with us, because The original sign said United Power Experimental Generating Station, City of Brighton District. And I mean, both the City of Brighton and United Power absolutely said this has nothing to do with us. Who is this? Who put this up?
So as I'm looking at this, with the air handlers to the extreme left and right of the photo, those structures, one looks like kind of like a high-rise, and then it seems like an accordion type of structure that goes beyond it. What's the proximity to the air handlers? Are you saying that's north of the air handlers?
Well, they're kind of in a semicircle shape.
Okay.
It's hard to tell from that photo. But you have one air exchanger looking south, you have one looking north, and then there's one looking east. And they're kind of in a semicircle. It's not like a perfect U shape. If you look at them, they're all a little bit offset to make up like a circle. And behind them is a building. It's hard to even say it's a building. There's no doors or windows. It's just a huge welded metal structure. And all of this stuff goes straight down into the ground. There's no, foundation or place you can walk in or anything. These things go straight down into the ground.
The air handlers that deal with the Lincoln tunnels are large. You can make them out. They're antiquated. I mean, they just look old. And there's quite a few stories high, and you can pick them out. However, those Lincoln Tunnel air handlers compared to these babies look like they're probably a third the size.
Yeah.
And so by what we see above the surface, can we only imagine what it might service below the surface? Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Let's go to the construction worker talking about his experience at Denver Airport, New World Airport, and then we'll come back and talk to what we've heard. Any of you want to send an instant message, it's MSN Messenger, Vyzygoth. Also, if you want to send an email, it's vyzygoth@hotmail.com. If something comes up while this is being aired, by all means, send something through and we'll deal with it when we come back. This is a construction worker who was at the site and saw things that he considered somewhat strange. We're going to change the audio source, and we'll be back talking with you in about 12 minutes.
A diagram of the Denver International Airport. It's just a rough drawing that I drew when I was working out there. What you have here is the east gate entrance into the terminal area of the new DIA. And then the runways, the main runways, of course, in here. And then approximately 2.5 to 3 miles away from the large Teflon dome terminal, the other terminal, are a set of tunnels, underground tunnels, approximately 16 feet by 12 feet. They're square tunnels. They were supposedly to be used for sewer and water. But the tunnels are square, and there's no water stop or anything like that that would be used in a tunnel to carry water. These tunnels were broken down into sections.
How many?
Approximately 5 to 6 sections per tunnel, coming from the main terminals to this set of 5 buildings that are constructed underground.
Okay. Let me ask you something here. We're talking about tunnels, 2 tunnels. The length is about 2.5 to 3 miles. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
How deep into the ground are these tunnels, would you say?
I would say approximately 25 to 30 feet down.
And, okay, once you are in the tunnel, how wide, how high, how much space do you have in there? How big are they?
The tunnels themselves are 12 foot tall by 16 feet wide, and they're just a rectangular formed tunnel. And they're all the same size. Okay,
what usage would people give to these tunnels, especially at an airport?
We used to use them to walk through, and we used to put forklifts and other machinery down there to transport tools and such thing, materials.
Can you feed the truck in there?
Oh yeah, you could fit a bus in there if you wanted to. You could fit a small special-made bus. We made jokes while we were building these things out here. The set of buildings that I worked on, in which the tunnel's tied to, about how they could go from tunnel to tunnel with little little bus loads of people, all the way around the whole area.
Okay, well, now tell us about those 5 buildings you have there outlined.
The 5 buildings we have all have intersecting tunnels that go between them and then tie into the main terminal areas.
Okay. What's the purpose for these buildings, in your opinion, or why did these people, decided to build something underground? And how deep are they, first of all?
They range anywhere from 60 feet deep to 120 feet deep, these 5 buildings do.
Is this some kind of a storage facility, or? We
were told it was for sewer and for water waste out in the east area, these buildings, but they weren't constructed in that order, in that manner to carry water. They have, and whenever you construct concrete buildings underground to hold water, you use water stop and Teflon coated rebar and a lot of other type materials. Instead we had no water stop, no Teflon type.
Let's hold on a second.
Hello.
Okay, let's continue here. You were saying that they told you these were for water?
For water and for sewer and sanitary waste and treatment out in here is what they said these buildings were all for. And they said that the tunnels that were coming over from the main terminals were going to be carrying the water and the sewer waste from the terminals out to these small buildings.
Okay. Now, this is a very important question here. I don't know if you want to tell us what construction company was in charge of this project, of the building of the tunnels, or the work being done in the tunnels and in these buildings underground.
These tunnels were split up between different companies. Not one company got more than one section of this tunnel.
Why do you think that is?
My reason is because they would start to get an overall picture of what they were really constructing across here. On most jobs this size, once a company is set up and sets up one section of tunnel, then they're already in progress of going all the way across. So it's easier for them to go ahead and continue with the contract all the way through than to bring in another company on each section. And it's very, very peculiar that they would be split up in that many sections with that many different type of companies doing the work.
So this was, in your opinion, doing on purpose, so the companies of the people working there would not know what was going on.
Nobody would know what was going on through here. Nobody would be able to get an overall picture of what was happening. The company that did all of these buildings out here didn't get any of these tunnel contracts.
Okay. Another question, besides what you told us already, what do you make out of all of these?
This looks to me like, in my opinion, it could be used for transporting people from the airports, terminals, out to these small buildings. And distributing people from these small buildings.
With what purpose, though?
For the New World Order.
What do you mean?
For disruptors.
What do you mean?
People that do not want to succumb to the wishes of the New World Order. For people who rebel against the government. For people who have been called up on sedition and conspiracy charges. For being in militias and such. People who have been labeled as freedom fighters and patriots. Where they could take and they could split them up with their families or without their families into different sections, into different buildings for holding, temporary holding. They could maneuver them through another process of tunnels to these 2 hidden runways, which are east of these buildings.
Let me see.
Half a mile.
Let me see if I understand what you're saying. Do you think that this construction underground was built to hold people there?
Yes, I believe it was built to hold people here and to also do your sorting. Sorting of people, determined by how radical they are. The more radical would get in one building, the less radical would it be in another.
Could we call this some kind of prison?
I would call it an underground concentration camp and distribution center for radicals, is what I would call it. And it's really highly peculiar. This was done, all this was done 3 to 3.5 years ago, was finished and buried.
How long ago was this done, you said?
3 to 3.5 years ago. These buildings and these runways were done. And
so this project began way before DIA began
This started up at the very, very beginning of DIA. And this was all completed at the very beginning of DIA.
Okay, what about those tunnels or roads or whatever you have to the left of the 5 buildings?
The tunnels?
To the left.
Oh, to the left. Those are runways. These are runways out here. These are long runways. These runways here.
So those are on the surface, right?
Yeah, no, they're on the surface. But
the runways, yeah.
They've been backfilled.
What do you mean?
They have dirt, a 4-inch dirt cap over the top of all of these 2 long runways. When we were working on these buildings, we saw them covering up these runways out here, and we asked questions what was going on with these runways. They said they poured them in the wrong place.
Huh.
But how can you miss runways by 2 miles? In my opinion, I think the large amounts of people would be coming in on these runways.
Right, they come to the
World
airport.
Order takes control. Once the money system fails, which you're starting to see around the world everywhere, the last place to fall will be the United States. That's the last place that they'll have to take people. They have too many radicals here with guns, patriots, freedom fighters, and such. They will bring them into the center point, which is the center point of the United States, can go to Europe, can go to the Middle East.
Okay.
This point here, they can bring them in, shuttle them over to the distribution center, shuttle them over to the other 2 runways, and send them off to whatever concentration camp for permanent keeping, such as Alaska, Montana.
Do you think that there is more construction underground at the new Denver International Airport?
There's an area to the south of this, which is also approximately 2.5 to 3 miles away from the main runway and DIA Teflon Dome terminal, where there was a lot of activity going on. They were always driving up so much dust and dirt out here, we couldn't see exactly what each other was doing at much time. We couldn't see much more than 100 yards ahead of us because of the dirt and the dust out there. But there were men working out here for a long time, I'd say 2 years, with heavy amounts of dirt up on the bank. That means they were deep down into the ground doing work out there. Now this area is covered completely. There's nothing to be shown out there. It's been restored to its natural look, just like this area out in here was.
What do you have on the surface where those 5 buildings are?
Dirt.
What's there?
Dirt. Right now there's just dirt, and now it's got grass and sage started to grow back up on all of this area out here. They put enough topsoil on top of everything to where you cannot see it from the air.
Can we say that some kind of secret task force that belongs to the government is behind all of this planning, construction, and secret buildings?
I believe that this is FEMA.
What's FEMA?
Federal Emergency Military Aid. Management Agency. Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Federal.
Okay, we're back. We had just listened to an about 11-minute clip from a construction worker who's working on the New World Airport or Denver International Airport. And one thing that struck me, and clear me up on this if you can, he seemed to indicate beside the actual airport that there was something like a side project in proximity, adjacent part of perhaps the airport construction, and then he speaks about another site that seems to be removed but within a visual line of sight from where he was working. Can you address whether or not we have 2 other things going on besides the airport being built?
Yeah, this was publicly admitted to a certain extent. The Denver International Airport Commission, they actually called it the New World Airport Commission, talked about various sub-projects related to DIA, and they had related in quotes. This came out in the paper in '93. One project had to do with, quote, underground cooling towers and buildings that were built, but unfortunately the construction company built them in the wrong place, so we just had to cover them up with dirt and let it go at that. I've actually got the news article on that where they actually admitted that to the paper. They call it a related construction project. They don't say it was, part of DIA's, whatever. They just say it was related. That was the one he talks about. It seems to me from his map that he drew and from what I've seen the DIA aerial maps, that seems to be on the northwest side of the airport. You can actually see where they covered these buildings up because there's a huge mound on the north side of the airport by the north security gate. They will not talk about that. Now, the other project he talked about was south of DIA, and that's actually off the DIA property. I've actually been to that site. That site is a building, probably about the size of the average ranch-style house. That is some type of communications hub. I actually managed to sneak up to the building when the door was open. Quest operates it, our local phone company here. When I looked inside, it looks like a telephone switching center, but it's got all kinds of computer equipment. They've got switching centers there. However, they have tunnels going south and north that are above ground. You can actually see them. They come off of the buildings. They're covered with dirt. They go for about 100 feet, and then they dip down into the ground. Now, I wasn't able to get completely inside the building. It's a government and communications phone company building. I would have been doing time with Bubba if I'd actually tried to get inside the building. But I got close enough that I could look in the open door that they had left open, and that has got to be connected to underground because I could see in both directions, and you could see the walkways actually slope downward into the ground in between the rows of equipment.
Has there ever been any talk about runways being unusually long?
Yes. Oh, yeah. That was a big issue with everybody because by the time DIA was built, the construction started. The Concorde was pretty much finished. I mean, they had had so many of them crash. They had basically the French just grounded the Concorde at that point. So everybody's like, why do you need these extra long runways? The 747 can use a runway half the length. City of Denver never explained it. They just told the media that they wanted to be prepared for, quote, future expansions and newer aircraft.
Were the covered-up runways of exceptional length beyond what a commercial airliner needs? Do you know?
Those would be the two runways he talked about. Now, I only saw one in the overhead maps from the city of Denver as well as on Knoll, so there could have easily been two, but I saw one, and it did appear to be about 2,000 feet longer than the runways next to it, from what I saw on the map. So it was an exceptionally long runway.
I exchanged IMs during the construction workers' little conference there, and the person is retired Air Force. And I asked, are military airstrips considerably longer than those needed for commercial airliners? It says, yes, part of my job was to aid in the transportation of VIPs to and from smaller strips. However, it does depend on the mission and how discreet the operation must appear. We can get into some of the speculation or the conjecture about what function this airport will serve. But I just like to ask this. I mean, given what may happen in the not-too-distant future, which might mean World War III and possibly the United States absorbing either internally or being lobbed in some nukes. What I see is that when we finally have to give up the United States, one of the ways it will be made more expeditious is to render D.C. uninhabitable. The old Mystery Babylon Religion Center for the new one.
Yep.
That new one I just see, and that's all I can say, as being Denver, and for an airport to serve a global type of situation, which might be much more busy than any single airport would be in these days.
Yep.
Do you want to speak to that? Because I mean, obviously, I've said this before. It looks like it's headed that way, but other than the government continually moving parts of certain agencies and such out to Colorado, I don't really have anything to go on. So they'll, speak to it as you will.
Okay. People have looked at this going clear back to the 70s and have said, the New World Order is going to have some kind of regional center or some center of political power, economic, military might. in recent years, this has been proven that Denver will be that center, not just because of DIA, but Newt Gingrich also admitted, it's been quite a number of years ago, this was during the Clinton administration, that Newt Gingrich admitted that Denver was the backup government for the United States government if Washington, D.C. got taken out. He admitted on TV and in the congressional record on C-SPAN that everything is set up in Denver for facilities for a federal Congress, a federal alphabet soup agencies like FBI, CIA, and President, and said that the military command and control will be transferred to the Denver regional area in the case of a nuclear attack that would take out Washington, D.C. So it's been publicly admitted that we would become the de facto federal government, the new Washington, D.C., if the old D.C. got taken out.
I don't know why they would necessarily use that place unless there was going to be something other flanking to be a distribution center, if you will, and in a jaded sense, an Ellis Island for those who are going to go off to the varied detention camps as civil internees and such. That I don't know. Does it really matter? Who knows? Well, we can talk more about this tomorrow when we also hear what else the construction worker has to say. It's another 11 minutes. One other thing, we all know that Colorado, as the Rocky Mountain state, has a history of being a very, very heavily mined state for copper, I assume, and silver and gold. So it did lend itself to underground passageways. We all pretty much assume, and I think accurately so, that much has gone on beneath us without our knowing it.
Oh, yeah.
Has anybody ever seen boring machines out there, or has there been any kind of talk about something going on below the surface, as it is also connected to the Denver airport, thinking like they do in D.C., have an underground way they can get out to Mount Weather and such in West Virginia?
Right. There are actually 3 people, and that doesn't include this construction worker, but there are 3 people that have alleged that there is an underground there. One of them is the telephone technician that gave me the information on the advanced phone call warning of the Columbine shooting. He actually helped install the fiber optics, and he saw tunnel boring machines, and these were pretty good-sized machines. He said they were about as big as semi-trucks in the tunnels, and he said there is a tunnel that goes from downtown Denver all the way out to DIA, and it is a 2-lane passenger highway. And he was out there during the construction of the tunnel going from downtown Denver to DIA, and he saw the actual tunnel boring machine sitting in a side tunnel, and they were changing tracks or something on it. They were changing something on it. Another one is a lady that lives south of DIA, and she could hear rumbling under the ground at night. It never happened during the day, and she was, big into all this conspiracy stuff, and she had asked some people associated with Denver, and they said, oh, yes, that's the underground construction associated with the tramways and the trains and such, like, yeah, we're using machines to dig the tunnels. So they kind of loosely admitted it, but only in association with the publicly known aspects of DIA. However, there is a third individual I met in film school, and he worked at Buckley Air National Guard. He was a civilian contractor. His job was to maintain those globes out there that pick up all the classified data off the satellites. And he also handled the underground construction out there related to fiber optics and other lines. And he said that they, at the time, the National Guard and the Air Force were working together, actually dug a tunnel going from Buckley Air National Guard, which is directly south of DIA, about 6 miles, and that tunnel connected to DIA. He actually admitted this publicly. There's like 20 of us in the room when he admitted it, and said that basically that DIA has a multiple purposes. He said it is a civilian airport, but in the time of emergencies, it can be easily converted to military use in case of nuclear, chemical, or biological attack.
Yeah, Stewart Air Force Base along the Hudson River in Newburgh, New York, it was a strange, in fact, it still remains a strange airport in the sense of that sometimes it's commercial, it's always military. But sometimes it's commercial, sometimes it's not. It's got this kind of, dual purpose, which is strange to see for an airport. Usually you're either military or you're commercial.
Yeah.
And my buddy's flown in there a couple of times as well. So when I think about the use of the runways out at New World Airport, I don't think it's a stretch to say that there's a capability to go along with that. Also, none of us really know how extensive tunneling takes place. Obviously, it would not be a good idea in Florida. But, through a mountainous terrain and such, I think it's probably an easier way of going. Also, we know that there have been articles in the Times about Russia building underground facilities, and the question was, if the Cold War is over, why are we doing this? So, something obviously is going on. Boring machines are not a fiction. You can see what they look like. Also, even Orwell mentioned this as a projection in 1984. I also want to tell you, as we wrap this part of the part one up of the two-part series on New World Airport, that Dwight the Bright sent me, I guess, a Google a shot of New World Airport, and he said there's another interesting configuration, which could be coincidence, and that would be one that's owl-like. So that's now in your email, Bill, for you to take a look at. Again, is it a coincidence? Who knows? We've all seen also the configuration, I guess, of a facility that's military down in San Diego. That, it does look like it's a swastika, so who knows. Also, I got an email from the Air Force person that says Frankfurt Airport, Germany, is dual purpose depending upon necessity. Exactly. The reason I also bring up Stewart, by the way, and we've said this on the show with regard to 9/11, that whatever flew down the Hudson River, which probably were replacements for 11 and 175, Stewart had to know something was up, because it is not commercial airspace. They do not fly down the Hudson. Private aviation does, commercial doesn't. So when Stewart saw that first one and then a second one, they knew something was definitely up. Now we get into the whole bit about, do we know whether or not this was a drill, blah, 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 but nothing's ever been said. Actually, not much has been said about Stewart and what they saw first thing as far as the planes going, let's just say, off course, strangely. So at any rate, okay, what we'll do is, Bill, we'll come back tomorrow, and we'll talk more about the second half of this guy's presentation, the construction worker who worked on Denver Airport, and then we'll also talk about the murals and just how strange they are.
Okay.
All right, so we shall see you tomorrow, same time, same bat channel.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.